me when you're ready, Joe.
You're on.
Good evening. It's the 1st of December, 2020. This is a meeting of the Tufton Borough Budget Committee. Due to the COVID protocol, you can listen in via telephone. The United States toll-free number is 1-877-309-2073. The access code is 611-426-261. Please note that you'll be able to interact during public input using the online service. However, you will only be able to listen to the meeting via telephone. If you have any issues attending this meeting electronically using the aforementioned instructions, please call 603-569-5903. I will therefore now call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We begin with any public input.
You want me to text Cip or just let it go?
If you would be willing to, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay. First order of business then is public input, as I said. And forthcoming, we'll review the November 24th minutes as presented. Anybody see anything that jumped out at them?
Under public input, after November 2020 minutes, there was no mention of a second on this. It was just brought up and then but with no second.
Where is that, Bob? What page?
On the first page, under review and approval of November 22 minutes,
Oh, okay.
I didn't see any second in there.
Who wants to take one for the team and second the motion?
I will.
Bob's going to second that. You just add
Thanks,
that to
Bob.
your... Anything else? No forthcoming, then I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved?
Been moved, there was a second.
I'll second.
I'm seconding. Those in favor?
Aye.
Harry? Aye. Gary?
Aye.
Ellen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Abstain.
Abstaining, because you were not here. Chair votes aye. Moving on then to our CIP presentation. Good evening, Jill. Thank you for coming to join us.
Thank you for having me. Everyone got a copy?
We did.
Good. I brought a couple extras in case they didn't. I'm Jill Cromwell. I'm chair of the Capital Improvement Programs Committee. On page 2, you'll see the list of the rest of the committee members. There are 8 of us in total, including a member of the Board of Selectmen, the Budget Committee, and the Planning Board. And I just wanted to mention from the beginning that our project spreadsheet, the 10-year plan, was unanimously approved by all these committee members that are listed there. On pages 4 through 7, you have the explanation of our process, some history about our committee over the years, and an explanation of the calculation of capital capacity, which is an indicator of what the town is willing to spend on capital projects. The projects submitted to us are listed in detail on pages 8 through 18, and all the departments do a great job in getting their requests into us and presenting to us and answering more questions that we have. And so we list their submissions and then our comments and our recommendations. Also, we ask the schools and the county for any capital project that they might have. And that's on page 20, a little description of their capital items. Page 21 details our recommendations. They're summarized for the 2021 year in the schedule of articles that we recommend. It's on page 23. And there are 6 of them you can see there. Then the entire 10-year plan is laid out in a spreadsheet on page 24. We recommend 6 projects to be funded in 2021. They're listed again on page 23 there. The last one, number 6, is not a warrant article, so that's why it's just a paragraph there. It's the loan payment on the fire station. But it is a capital expense, so we listed there. Funding for 4 other projects was requested in 2021, but in our efforts to fund the priority of a new police station and keep capital spending close to the capital capacity, we moved them out to future years. They're worthwhile projects, but we felt they could be delayed because we felt that the fire station was a priority that needs to be funded. The 4 that we moved out are the fire rescue ATV trailer rescue sled, which is up 20 years old and up to be a new one purchased. We moved it to 23. The highway garage heating system upgrade, we moved to 2023. A new police vehicle, we moved to 2022. Transfer station message trailer, we moved out to 2026. The project's total for 2022 is also way over the capital capacity, which you'll see on that chart on page 24. At the bottom of it, the capital capacity, a negative number, is the amount over, the project total is over the capacity, but the capacity what we think the town might be willing to pay for capital projects. So we moved some of the 22 projects out to future years also. Those were the highway garage paving and additional police vehicles. We actually took the whole police vehicle schedule and bumped it out a year so that they all moved out. So they would be like on a 9-year replacement schedule instead of the 8 that we've had before. But we didn't quite stick to it a year or so ago because we weren't using one of them when we had people out. And so we think it's, something that might be okay. You need to look at the condition of the vehicles as each year comes up. Of note on the chart, we established capital reserve funds for the replacement of engine 1 and engine 2. And that's something we've been trying to do for a couple of years now for engine 4. We thought if we saved over a 10-year period for the trucks, they're about $800,000, we would be able to purchase them outright, not do the lease purchase, and save $150,000 in interest costs. So we tried to do it for engine 4, and we had tried it, it was a bigger chunk because we didn't start it 10 years out, we started it like 5 years out, but then it didn't get passed last year. And we figured the chance of it passing again this year when we're again over the capacity for what we want to do with the police station, we should just go ahead and schedule that as a lease purchase. So you will see that scheduled in 25, starting as a lease purchase. But for engines 1 and 2, you'll see capital reserves started for those. And that's something our committee feels strongly that we should start doing. That's our planning. That's what we should be doing and saving the town money in the long run. But those things keep getting pushed off when some other priority comes up. Let's see. Our planning process is not perfect. Often projects come up after our submission deadline in September, or new quotes come in with different amounts or different funding methods are determined. Page 22 shows a chart that looks at the evolution of the projects from last year. So it shows all the ones that we got and what we recommended. There were several that were never presented to us. Then it shows what the selectmen proposed, what the budget committee proposed, the town meeting passed them, so you can sort of see what has happened to them. what happens will happen again with our projects from this year. At the end of the report, on 25 and 26, we project tax rates. We show them for the last 5 years and projections for the next 6, based on the capital projects that are on the plan. We'd like to emphasize that more planning for years 5 to 10 on our 10-year plan needs to be done. If you look out there, you'll notice we have a lot of capacity and no projects, because a lot of departments are not looking that far out. And it's hard because they don't know prices, but even just a placeholder of an estimate. So I would really urge the selectmen to ask all the departments to be planning. Do a long-range plan and be thinking 10 years out. We also considered this year whether to increase the amount that's considered as a capital project. It's been $10,000 since we started in 2007. So we thought with inflation, maybe we should even look at things that small. Maybe we should look at 20,000 or 25,000. Wolfboro looks at 100,000 on up. So we did look through some other towns of similar size to ours, and most of them had 10,000. So we didn't recommend any change, but I think that's something that the selectmen and the budget committee may think is worthwhile. So just let us know, because we can certainly change what we look at and what goes on the plan. I think that's pretty much the synopsis of what we've done. Are there any questions?
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
sir?
Jill, how are you tonight?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this. This is terrific. I had a couple of comments. I was very, very pleased to see the discussion in a few places about using capital reserve accounts. I really congratulate you in getting on to that, and I hope we can make more use of them for other pieces of equipment that are known to have a certain lifespan. I also want to mention that I noted that the proposed or the projected tax rates seem to have a dip in 2020 and 2021. And I'm wondering, this is probably not a question for you directly, but just for all of us in general. One of our jobs, like yours, is to try to stabilize tax rates as much as possible. And I'm just wondering if perhaps for 2020, 2021, that maybe some of our spending could be brought up a little bit, which would produce a tax rate that would be consistent with the flow of tax rates going from, say, 2018 up through 2022. The other comment I wanted to make is, and this is kind of a question, the capital reserve amount for the police facility for 2021, that's the number that comes from the select people? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I would just like to make a second comment that perhaps in terms of, again, housing the tax rates to be a little more stable, that perhaps some of the money that is programmed for 2022 could be also included into that 200 figure, and that perhaps the selectmen might want to consider using the figure of 250,000 for the year 2021. And that would reduce the amount that looks like we're going to have to come up with in 2022. So those are my comments, and I think it's a great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to mention that the tax rates for capital projects in 2020, for instance, the library, there were no funds expended from the town in 2019, so the actual rates, because they used the reserve and the donated funds, and then, so that won't show up until the 2020. So, some of these numbers are a little skewed by the way that spending happened. And we thought we would have more capital spending than we ended up having.
Well, I agree, and I think that it's good that we can use undesignated fund balance from time to time to help set the tax rate. But, that's sort of a process that every dollar that we can raise locally is just another dollar that goes into it or gets expended on some sort of piece of capital equipment. So, if we were able to utilize a little higher tax rate for 2020, 2021, that would just be more money that would be available in the undesignated fund balance in future years. So it's kind of a balancing act that we play there.
Okay. Thank you for all your hard work,
Thank you.
first of
I
all.
would just like to say, I thought this report was excellent. It covers a lot of information, and I have to applaud your committee.
However, I'm not done.
I'm sorry.
Looking over the situation for a new police facility, we're talking about a $200,000 warrant article this year and a $568,000 one-year expenditure next year. Now, I know the selectmen's theories on, not carrying any debt. However, I just did a little back of the envelope, looking at things, and I said, all right, if I want to borrow $750,000, which is essentially what we're talking between the two, and I was looking at just a 2.5% 5-year note, okay, I'd be paying $47,000 in interest. If I couldn't do it for 2.5 and I had to pay 4% on a 5-year note, I'd be paying $76,000 in interest. Now, I recognize the fact that we've forestalled the police station far too long. I mean, I would have been a lot happier if we had gone back to the drawing board years ago and redesigned the fire station to be a true public safety building. But that didn't happen, so now that was then, this is now. But the time value of money is such that, to ask for a $568,000 one-time hits in taxes in 2022 is a lot of money. I mean, we asked the town last year for $350,000 for the library, but keep in mind that we had, the library had well over $1 million of donated money to do that project, and outside of a potential grant for the police station, it's all coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. I should think that, debt can be an asset. If you can borrow money at a very, very low level of interest, and granted the Fed says they're not going to do anything until, we don't know when they're going to start doing the money policies in Washington, but we're going to be looking at a low interest rate for a fair amount of time. But still, capital preservation, I think, would dictate that we perhaps take a look at this over a 5-year period. Because even if we borrowed at 4 points for 5 years at $76,000, that's going to be less than what it's going to cost us if we wait until 2022, because of the cost of materials, the cost of labor. The longer we put this off, the more it's going to cost us. And I beat this horse over the years for the library, okay, until finally we got it done. I just think it would be much better money management on the part of the town if we said something. Yes, it's New Hampshire, and yes, by God, we're not going to carry any debt because that's the way it's always been done. But as I say, sometimes debt can work for you. And I think this is something that certainly the selectmen and the budget committee, and I will stand up at town meeting and say the same thing. Maybe this is something we should consider doing.
It is, last year, we did have it in there as a loan, and we had it in there as a loan. I think we did a 10-year estimate. But this year, I guess we decided to change it because, well, first of all, there's several grants that it looks like we might get that are another piece of this. And that may play into what ends up happening. We may do it all in 21, because we won't, if we get the grants then, if we don't get the grants, if we do it in 22, then that makes us make a decision for the vote to be in 21.
I will ask Chip, where we stand on the grant situation right now?
Well, we've got about $275,000 already committed. So that we have $650 saved up, so that brings us to 900 and something. Yeah, just short of $1 million. I think the total cost, we're still waiting for the figure, and we should have it by the end of December. But assuming the figure's $1.7 million.
Well, the CIP says $1.8 million.
Well,
Yeah, because it was 10 change, you rounded up.
Okay.
okay, well, let's say it's $1.8 million. But the number we were given by the architect and the construction manager is $1.7 million. So you've got $700,000 or $750,000 that you're missing. So we're working on one grant, which would be $600,000, but that's not gonna come through or be decided on until June of next year. So our thinking is, I mean, we plugged in, CIP's plugged in, I wrote over about $200,000. And then there was another number that I moved around because we're not gonna do that project. But I think there's $300,000 that is available in warrant article money in the state, and our numbers track exactly the way CIP is said. So now we've got $400,000 or $500,000 shortfall. So what do we do about that? We've got $1.2 million in the undesignated fund balance. You take $500,000 out and pay for it. At that point, you've saved $76,000 in interest. You also sort of made the voting of it a little easier. And we've already saved that money. I mean, I have to look at the undesignated fund balance the way the CIP looks at accounts for future purchases. It's no different, really. It's just a broad bank account as opposed to a specific bank account. So, and that would still leave us with about I think 12.5% cushion on our budget. DRA recommends 10%. We don't have to have any capital or any undesignated fund balance. There's no statutory requirement, but it would cover. It would give us a 10% or 12.5% cushion against disaster. So that's the conversation we're currently having, but we need to get more clarity on the figures, the actual build costs, because that's being worked out currently as we speak, and more clarity on the grant so that we know definitely that we qualify. So if we were to get the $600,000 grant money in April, then we don't have to dip into anything that the town currently has. And we do the whole thing with a $300,000 warrant article or $200,000 warrant article.
But in 2021 or 2022?
2021.
Okay. As I said, the longer we put it off, obviously, the more it's gonna cost us.
Right, and
And
you know, these grants are time sensitive, so, you know, when they come up, you gotta get them, and then you have to use the money. You can't just sit on the money forever.
Well, would you anticipate you would know whether we qualify for the grant by town meeting?
No. Well, okay, I'll color that a little bit. We would know that we would qualify, that our project fit all the qualifications. We wouldn't know if we had the award, because they're not gonna make those awards until the end of April, 1st of May. It's my understanding of it.
The other grants have conditions on them too. Some of them, when they give you a grant, they require some
Well, there's a
things that they want in the building.
Right, there's a reason for the grant, so, and so that's part of the process. If it requires a certain number of square feet for this purpose, does our building currently have that in its design? Would that skew the number on the design if we were to add square footage so that it outweighs the benefit of getting the grant? So there's, all of that's a moving target currently. But our architect feels as though the building as it's currently designed will qualify. We just need to get a little more surety from our grant writer that that's actually going to happen.
I remember now why we had the 1.8 and you have the 1.7, because we added 5% inflation if we weren't going to do it until 22,
Right.
which is what our plan says. So I'm sorry I didn't remember that earlier. I knew there was a reason for that.
Well, if, on a hypothetical, for example, if we went to town meeting and said, all right, we want to borrow $750,000, I'm just throwing numbers out, not getting down to the nitty gritty. $750,000 for 5 years, would that preclude, and it was passed,
Right.
would that preclude us from being able to get that grant money?
Well, it depends on where you borrow it. I mean, if you do a bond, you can still get the grant money, but now you gotta put another $700,000 or $600,000 into your facility. Because the bond isn't gonna get prepaid, you can't prepay that, so we have to do bank loan.
So if we did it on a bank, all right, well, I would never bond $750,000 anyway, but if we were to do a bank loan,
Right.
would that preclude us from qualifying for that grant?
No, our financial situation doesn't enter into
Oh, okay.
the grant process.
So if we took a $750,000 loan as a community with no prepayment penalty, and we got a $600,000 grant, we'd be looking pretty good, wouldn't we?
I guess in one respect we would be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a philosophical difference that you and I have maybe on public debt, but it's obviously a discussion that we're gonna have about the police facility before this budget process ends. Because you guys are gonna have to weigh in on whatever warrant article we propose.
Chip, how did we come up with the figure for $200,000 for the capital reserves on the police facility for this year, or for 2021?
I think that you could ask our chairman of the CIP committee that question.
Oh, all right.
We didn't establish that number, I don't believe.
I wasn't sure where it was coming from.
Okay,
It
then
was
it's
from
a,
our discussion with Lloyd and Chip when they presented to us.
maybe it's a historical figure that we're.
Knowing that it was,
Well,
the most we've ever put into a capital reserve is 200,000.
Right.
I mean, 150,000, and this is 200, so it's more than usual. But
Yeah.
we thought
Well,
certainly warranted
it
to
is more than usual, but it's, I think it's important that we want to have as much flexibility next year, whether it's going to be coming out of undesignated fund balance or financing, or whether we get grants or don't get grants. But it just seems to me that we would have room this year for another 50,000 at least. And I realize it's a big number, but it's a big project. And
just so you understand, the CIP's number of 200,000 for 2021 would have to change if we were going to do this project in 2021. That capital amount that's going on the police station in the form of a warrant article, my best estimation would be it would be at least 300,000. So
yeah.
that number's going to change.
Okay.
I mean, if we go, anyway, go ahead.
No, if you have more to add, go ahead. I just have another comment before after that. If you're done.
Go ahead.
It's very awkward with the phone here. It's hard for me to jump in at the right time. Gordon, I just want to say that I think I agree with you about the time value of money, and I guess all of this would be sort of an option that we're going to have when we start to finalize figures for 2022, assuming we get everything done for 2021. And coming from a world where interest rates used to be in the high teens, I think time value of money these days is not that bad to look at.
No. As I said, my ending point was that if we know that we're dealing with a crisis, has been presented, not necessarily a crisis situation, but a building that imminently needs to be dealt with. The quicker that we can deal with it, I feel is going to be the better. I'd be a lot happier seeing it built in '21 than putting it off to 2022, not to be complete till 2023. Because certainly Barry's in the construction business, and he knows what's happened to the price of materials and the price of labor. And we have, historically low interest rates right now. I just think that's something that we should consider moving forward, and I'll let it go at that. We can obviously have more discussions when it comes time to actually discuss the true
Well, we do have just as a side note, we do have a build schedule from the construction manager, which would start in April and be done October 21st, I think it is, of next year. So it isn't a multi-year project, if you will.
Well, they work on it. They can start in April.
Right.
I mean, they're ready to go out to bid the day town meeting is over.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's unusual.
Yeah.
It always troubles me that we vote on these things and we raise money for these things before we know the exact cost of them and whether we're gonna get.
Yes,
It seems
I
like,
agree with you.
it seems like at the last moment we always get this.
All right, Dave. I want you to build me a house next April. What's it gonna cost?
Well, you know.
There's no way in the world you could tell me.
No.
You could add 20% on your budget and maybe get out of it whole. But to actually get you to sign the paper that says you'll build me that house for that amount of money, one, I'm not getting the best price, and two, you have no certainty of your cost. So that's the dilemma no matter where you go. I mean, if I can't get my loan approved until the middle of March, you know you're gonna have to adjust your price.
If I go to get a loan to do something, they say, well, how much is that building gonna cost? I said, I have no idea. I'll know in 6 months, whether it's back in 6 months, and we'll talk about giving you a loan again. You know, it's just that we have to make up our mind and decisions on these things, right, at the last moment. You know?
Well, the number that we bring to you in January for the warrant is going to be 55. It's not gonna change if we do the building in 2021.
And my other point of view is, I say, do we need to have a police department? These towns
Vote
opting
no.
out and contracting it out and not building
Barry.
facilities and buying the cars.
Vote no. All you have to do is one vote no. You know, you're not gonna convince me that we don't need a police department.
I
I
know
don't
that.
think you're gonna convince Gordon. So count the votes on the table and see if you can carry it.
But it's happening elsewhere because the towns can't afford this, and that's what they're doing. And, how long can we afford all this? Who knows?
That's a question, that's a question for a later time, and not while children should be home enjoying their evening.
My husband's making pizza for me.
That's a keeper. Jill, thank you very, very much. Once again, thank you. Thank you to all the CIP committee members.
Thank you, Joe.
And
Can't wait to finish reading it.
Good, good.
it's great writing, great reading. Okay.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Just in the nick of time,
Good night. You're welcome to stay as long as you want.
I think she just answered that question. Moving on to our next item, which is the ambulance. Ambulance figures. And all my worries about where I want to see for nothing because here it is. Good evening, Adam. Good evening. Well, this is better than I deserve it, as I always like to say.
Seems like the heat.
That's quite comfortable.
Although it was nice out there.
Okay, ambulance. This one's pretty much cut and dry, isn't it?
So the ambulance for 2021 will be $196,930.44. That's for 1 year. This is an approximate 9% increase, limited due to the New Hampshire CPI over the 2020 budget figure of $195,174.
So is this a multi-year contract?
It is a 1 year contract at a time. It's not a multi-year. If you wanted to enter into a multi-year contract, it would be increased each year by the New Hampshire CPI for them. So it's a $1,765.57 increase. If you have any questions in reference to what we actually bring in for our backup ambulance, I have some figures for that. We don't bring in a lot, obviously. We don't transport a lot of people. In 2020 so far, we've transported 12 people from Tuftonboro. So I do have those figures that I can give you.
Any other questions?
On your costs, do you bill the insurance companies for the people who provide your ambulance right inside as a patient? Or does the provider of the contract bill it?
The provider of the contract, as far as when they transport, they do their billing.
They do the billing?
They do their own billing as far as it goes. When we transport, we have a billing company that does our billing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So for the 12 transports that we've done so far this year, the gross billing was $27,099.50. As far as you go across the sheet, there are adjustments, contractual allowed, which was $11,790.41. Net charges would be $15,309.09. So far, as far as payments, we've received $7,136.64. Write-offs were $110.78. And currently, we have a balance of $8,061.67. A lot of people feel that ambulances make a huge amount of money off of the different stuff. When it gets down to contractual allowances and things like that, the reason why ambulance companies bill so high is that so that they can bring in whatever amount in the end when Medicare pays like 20% of whatever they billed out, type of thing. You don't make as much money as you would think, but the bills are. I mean, some of the ambulance bills that I've seen are very expensive. You know, if you're transported to any distance.
It's like finding monopoly money.
So is this $8,000 patient pay or still insurance pay?
It could be, it's a combination. Some is insurance, some is patient.
Patient pay?
And a lot of times, we're not gonna see the patient pay as far as that goes, depending on whether or not that they get sent to collections and things like that. So, in some cases, you might have a $2,000, like we had one person that stopped at the fire station. He was from Maine. He got transported in with chest pain, and it was the ambulance bill was that I saw from the billing company is probably like around $2,000 something dollars, but we'll never see it
No.
because he was from Maine, and you know the addresses and stuff like that. Nothing is coming back correct, and
Do you have
stuff.
his insurance card?
No. There was, you don't, in that particular case, we don't make them give us insurance cards up front type of thing, especially if they're, they're indeed having chest pain. It's almost like, some ambulance companies on transfers and things like that, they require a credit card up front.
All right, so then let me ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No
So
problem.
did you bring this patient, did you transport this patient back to Maine, to a Maine hospital or to
No,
Wilbur?
this is to Wilbur.
Okay, so then the hospital has that insurance information.
All the information that they have is the same information that we have,
So they,
as far as, because he didn't have insurance.
oh, he didn't have insurance.
So
So that's very
you
different.
can't make someone that doesn't have insurance
No, I
give you
understand that.
insurance information.
I understand that.
We have his mailing address, and all that, but it doesn't matter.
All right.
So that's where you find that you don't get whatever amount of money. So when our ambulance company and that is us as being a backup ambulance. That particular day we had, he was a walk-in. We had some other calls going on, so we ended up transporting him ourselves. But if Stewart's transports that person, then they're not getting the money for the
Right, I
meeting.
understand.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to explain that a little bit as far as, some people think that on top of the $196,000 or whatever dollars that it is, that they're making, millions of dollars on top of it.
No, we're not.
Type of thing.
Adam, how many transports does Stewart's do a
Um,
year for talking about?
It varies as far as it goes. They have to be available for every medical call and every fire call that we have. Trees on the wires and, smoke alarm activations and things like that, we don't require that they come out. They come on the radio and acknowledge the tone and they stay in quarters. But any medical calls or any actual fires where, someone could be hurt, car accidents and all that stuff, they come out. But they probably average about 120 transports a year. To actually make money off of doing ambulance stuff, you need over 1,000 transports for a year as far as that. And that's when you start seeing money, to be able to cover your operation and stuff like that.
But that doesn't even come close to covering the cost of the equipment over the years.
No, right.
I mean,
Basically, I was looking at if we wanted to, go out and do it ourselves tomorrow, type of thing, we would need 8 people, full-time. You now have extra costs as far as people staying in the stations. You need to pay them, the salaries, you pay them insurances, you pay them whatever that our full-time people would be getting. Without the insurance, longevity pay, overtime, and all of that different stuff, I was up to like $501,000 just to get started.
just to start.
So, to me, it's a no-brainer as far as, I've got 2 people that are coming in, at least to the advanced level. A lot of times it's at paramedic level, and I have a guaranteed ambulance, depending on how busy things are. They have not let us down. They are a busy ambulance service, but one way or another, that review that comes from Wolfboro comes from Moultonborough. There is a little bit of time in there that's where we come in. We stabilize the patient for whatever period of time. If it's gonna be any, if it's gonna be too long and the patient is too serious, and we've got the personnel to transport, then we transport the patient. And then they would, in turn, take the next call that came in and speed it back up.
One thing the building service has done is to flatten out our cost. If you look at the next page, the ambulance contract was 183 in 2015, 183 in 16, 185 in 17, 187 in 18, 192. So if you deduct the $18,000 that he's going to collect for the insurances, et cetera, for doing our own ambulance, that brings our real net cost down to about $180,000. So it's flattened that ambulance cost.
Well,
I make a motion
certainly.
that we approve the ambulance general fund in the amount of the number 4215 and the amount of $196,931.
Second that.
It's been moved and it has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Very well then. Mary? Chip? Gary? Helen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Penny? Chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Moving on to emergency management.
Go ahead with the question, Mrs. Strong.
Well, when I start looking at the line items, I'm looking at the emergency, I'm looking at the 26,341 emergency E9 fire, PD, EMS. We haven't expended the number is half of what it was this year.
Yep,
Yet we have not expended anything this year.
correct.
And I was just curious why.
Waiting for a bill from the county.
Okay?
To be able to pay that. That line is in, it's up and running as far as it goes. It will not be as much as they initially quoted us for last year, because it was cheaper as far as the cost, as far as putting it in. And I actually have an amount per month that they're gonna be billed, and we're gonna pay the county one-time fee with that instead of every month. The E-line is running the radio equipment that we currently have at the fire station that was put in with a grant for the radio upgrades to give us better communications in our area as far as town-wise. It's working pretty well overall. It's not perfect by 100%, but it is working. One big change that you will see as far as in the emergency management budget is COVID expenses and supplies. This last year, we spent $9,825.39 for COVID expenses. And a good portion of that was reimbursed by the state. So that will go back into the budget. However, there was a couple $1,000s that the state wouldn't reimburse because they, like these shields that you see at the town office or library or different areas, they wouldn't reimburse for the supplies to do that and a few other things, a couple $1,000s worth of stuff that we thought initially would be reimbursed. But we did apply for the proper paperwork to get that back in. So basically, we have a line now in the budget to take the COVID expenses from, before I was taking it from operations and put the equipment line. The operations line, I was about 800% overspent, and the equipment line, I was about 200 and something percent overspent. But we were able, it took some time to get the paperwork completed. This folder is everything to do with the COVID paperwork that we had to give to the state and the federal government to get that money back. But to me, $9,000 is a lot of money coming from the emergency management side, since the budget wasn't that much to begin with and overall. We initially weren't able to do the different things that we were going to plan to do. We were holding off on that until we got some of the money back for that, and now we can take care of what we were planning to do. We obviously, we do continue throughout the year with maintenance. The 14 defibrillators that you see, there's one behind us. We have pads that expire at different times of years with them, the batteries that they go bad. Sometimes the units themselves go bad, so we usually budget for one a year in that particular case. And that includes the ones that are carried in the police cruisers, through the stuff that's throughout town as far as it goes. There are a few items that we still needed to purchase as far as equipment for emergency management that we were going to do. Forestry expenses were not too bad so far this year. We had the normal stuff that we normally do. And with the weather, even as dry as it was, we didn't have as bad a fire season as some places had. So, which is good.
You get any cooperation through the state on the forestry?
We do get so like the permits that are written, at the general store, and the ones that are done by my officers or myself and stuff like that, there's a 50% matching grant. So everything that we write, a bill goes into the state, and 50% comes back to the town, besides what we have to pay to the general store for the permits that they do.
Talk to us, I should say, about generator maintenance.
Generator maintenance is all the generators that we have throughout town. We have one here, we have one at the highway garage now, we have one at the landfill, one at the town house.
We have the four, what I consider the whole house generators, but I'm looking at the line item for the central station.
The one at the 100 kW that's at the central station, and then the 75 kW that's mobile. That is at the Mirror Lake station inside.
So the mobile one, you're including the one at the central station and the mobile one?
Yes.
That line item?
Yep.
Okay, that takes some sting out of it.
No, that is, and I think that last year, I actually forgot to, because we had such, we spent over $9,000 fixing that mobile. Last year, I forgot to do the maintenance line, as far as for that. And obviously, we didn't have to, besides all the work that they did on it, we didn't have to do, the general maintenance then, because it was all in that whole process. But that didn't save us anything in the long run, because it was a lot of money to fix it. But everything as far as generators is all incorporated in that line.
Okay.
Adam, why have you spent so little money?
What's that?
Why have you spent so little money through November on that budget, the 2020 budget.
Because it was all put back. I didn't have that money. As I said, I was 800% overspent. I couldn't spend any money. I have all the receipts, all the paperwork here for that. So I didn't have the money to spend because it was gone. And now some of it has been put back. We can do what we need to do as far as it goes, but I still
anticipate spending a lot of money in December.
I just anticipate it spending whatever is needed as far as the different things. The one thing that won't get spent will be the grants and hazardous mitigation, the $4,000 for that, because all of that stuff is, on hold right now as far as the hazardous mitigation plan. Until that person can come in and meet with a group of people, they can't do that plan for the town as far as it goes. So that will just get rolled into the next year as the same amount of money. So to give you an idea, as of 10/30, under operations, which my budget was $800, we had spent, as far as the town, $5,847.11, which was 830% used.
This is in Washington, buddy, cut it out.
And as far as equipment, the budget for equipment was $3,213. The year-to-date was $3,454.94 spent. So that was 237% used in that. And until that was put back by the reimbursement, there was nothing there to do anything. Forest fire, there will be a little bit more coming out of that. They'll definitely, as far as the equipment side, and I probably don't have what you have in front of you. I don't know what your current date is at the top. My last update was 10/30/2001. Yeah, and I know that the selectmen had talked with Diane in reference to how that was going to work, as far as where the money was going to go, if it was going to be put back or not, as far as it goes. So
I think I know our plan was to take the income that came in, the reimbursement,
Yep.
and put that on the cash side and reflect your expenses outside of that.
right, we were going to go ahead and do what we needed to do, and if it's
But your budget as it's expended in front of us is the actual expenses that you've spent on outside of that COVID situation.
right, okay, and I can see where that would be like. Why haven't you done anything with it? To me,
This year there'll be a significant portion of this budget that'll just go into the undesignated fund balance.
Yeah.
But next year's budget needs to reflect the proper expenses on an annualized basis.
Any questions?
I'd like to move that we approve the emergency management budget for Department 4290 in the amount of $21,703.
Movements. You have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Aye.
Barry? Barry goes aye. Gary?
Yes.
Chip?
Aye.
Helen?
Yes?
Bob?
Yes.
Penny? Chair votes aye. Thank you, Adam.
thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Next item is 4612, conservation. Evening, Steve. Thank you for joining us.
The 50-year-old was here back in the
fine. Well, you see that your budget is down considerably, you might want to start explaining why that happened. I'm sorry, I said your budget is down.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start. Why?
Well, the biggest one is, we had some big plans, being our administrative assistant last year, and it really didn't work out. A lot of it had to do with COVID.
Yeah.
The things would be required in order to travel and attend training and go things like county office to do deed researches and things like that. And we have changed our new administrative assistant, so we just pared it back to what our normal experience was, just doing regular business. That was the big one, and then we pared down a few things because we expect, COVID to continue to interfere with some of our activities into the next year. So we probably won't attend as many conferences or do quite as much personal contact with the public.
Water monitoring, the budget of $3,000, haven't spent any, is that a COVID-related thing?
It's just, the bill comes in at the end of the year.
Oh, okay,
So
end of the year expense.
This is for UNH's lab work.
Okay.
All the samples are taken by volunteers, and then at the end of the year, they send a bill for doing the lab work. So that'll be coming in a couple of weeks, and it probably won't be over 3,000, but it'll be pretty close.
Along those same lines, the well water testing, $11. Is that just because people didn't bring their water samples in to be tested, or?
It's more reflects what we've been spending or potentially spending.
Okay.
Every year we think, oh, we might have this cost, we might have that cost.
Okay.
We wind up doing it all with volunteer time.
Well, is this related to, for example, if I want to bring a sample of my well water to you, when we have that program every year, is that the line item that's paying for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the big difference is, we haven't been allowed, the state lab where we have the testing done, we haven't been allowed to have a big program because they've been under a lot of stress for issues in the state on well water. And people are starting to wake up to the risk involved. So there's a lot more participation, and they haven't received any more budget. So when we did the big programs, we had to go down and pick up the kits and then bring them back, and then get people to bring them back, bring them in, and then we stored them and then took them down the next day. And now we just have the kits available at the town office.
Okay.
And trying to, and then the people who use them are responsible to get kits back down to council.
Gotcha.
So we don't have the mileage that's involved in that, or.
Okay, I was just curious to know where that number's coming from. I guess my only other question is 19 Mile Brook. Where do we stand on that?
We're in the final stages of working on a proposal that will monitor the brook for 3 years, and we'll probably need to pay for it. We have a couple more issues to sort out. I hope to bring the selectmen up to speed on that on Monday. I think, we're pretty close. We don't actually have any costs involved in that, but I wanted to put $1,500 in, just in case there's something we want to add on ourselves, which would mean we would be responsible for paying for it. It gives us a little bit of flexibility. Or maybe the consultant we're using, which is the same consultant that did the watershed plan for this area, we just rolled out last year. Maybe we see an opportunity for them to do a little more work in some particular area regarding this proposal. So it would give us a little flexibility.
Why did the selectmen add $200 to your your mileage and
We felt sorry
inspection.
for it.
Huh?
That was originally, you know, it was my idea. I knew that everybody was putting in mileage to go and do these DES permit inspections that we do for DES. But it also provides a service for the town because the people who have applied for those permits, the landowners, if we do the inspection, it speeds the whole thing up. So it actually provides a little service. And, you know, everybody was putting their own gas in the car. It was particularly expensive on doing islands because boats burn a lot more fuel than cars. And it isn't like you can go down at the speedometer and pick out a mileage. So, anyway, that was the idea, but everybody's been good. They don't mind putting out a few extra miles. We all take turns doing it on a rotating basis, so you probably don't do more than 3 or 4 a year. It's the island duties that are a lot more time consuming and expensive. So we haven't been spending it. So I knocked it down $100. And the selectmen thought that we probably should be charging for it because we're being such good citizens, so they bumped it back up.
For the amount of time you put into it, you shouldn't have to lose money on the deal.
Yeah, was that worth $200?
Currently, people are doing it out of the goodness of their heart. I think the selectmen felt as though we need to start a tradition of paying for statutory mileage, and maybe the next group won't have as big a heart as the current group has, and we'll be ready to do some mileage. And we certainly don't think it happens, but we don't want things not getting done because
I think you're smart about it. Instead of trying to claim mileage every time you do something, which is not a lot of mileage, we burn up a lot of administrative costs just trying to do that little bit of compensation. But if we worked out a way with our administrative secretary so that everybody could log in their miles, and then at the end of the year we put in one requisition for a mileage compensation, that would probably be more efficient.
Other question?
I would like to recommend that we approve the conservation budget for 4612 in the amount of $19,100.
We have a
I'll
second?
second.
Penny is seconded. Barry?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Chip?
I
Helen?
Yes?
Bob?
Yes,
Penny?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for
Thanks
all
for
your
your good work.
work.
Next item, 4520, Parks and Rec. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm well.
I'd like to introduce our chairman of our commission, Lyndon Woody. We had a commission meeting tonight, so we had a little hour to kill for our budget.
I know I was invited or was one of the selectmen, and I apologize for not coming to the meeting.
What's this COVID deal? My wife bought me these ear things, you know?
What?
We have this meeting going on.
It's all good.
And I think the question that you're asking, once the budgets are approved, and I think that it already has been approved, then we can talk about the management of that money as opposed to turn on the input. That's okay, Dennis, because it's not here.
Well, listen, before I get into the 2021 budget, I just want to talk a little bit about what's happened this year with the COVID. There are a lot of cancellations, of course, swim lessons, swim team, concerts, we did bring some back. And as of early as 2 weeks ago, we made an adjustment to our payment to Wolfboro. They initially charged us, almost a $17,000, and we questioned them on that. And the selectmen, I think, did the right thing and adjusted it. So the 1661, the bill they sent us is $4,998. So there was a balance there of 11,663 excess. So speaking with the selectmen, we've had some projects going on. To go on to this year's budget, for example, we painted the barriers down at 19 Mile Beach. We repaired the fence, which is all loose and the bottom was flapping, so that's been repaired. There's a pass-through that we're putting right near the portal that we met with the local snowmobile club, and they're working on getting clarification from the state to park in the lot, go down the highway, cut right through where the portal that is, get right down the ramp onto the lake. So we agreed to make that path for them. The other thing we're looking at is a storage container, which was a bone of contention last year. But we find out we're part of this Northeast Resource Recovery Group, and we got a bid on that for $35.20. And the storage is becoming an issue. There's things piled up behind the shed down at 19 Mile Beach. If you check the cellar down at the town offices, it's getting pretty crowded. So we've agreed to get that up at the transfer station and help with our storage needs. So that's where we are. That was the excess from this year's budget. I just wanted to explain that a little bit. As far as the 2021, you obviously have copies in front of you. One of the biggest items I think that the selectmen brought up was the recreation areas going from 4,000 to 6,000. And the reason for that is for a few things. Number one, we really want to get some better lighting down at 19 Mile Beach, especially if you're there after the concert, you see how dark it is, lighting for the flag, things like that. Signage is another issue. You come in the main parking lot area, there's a big sign with all the rules and everything else. Well, majority of people come in the other way when we run events, so there's no signage there. Some of the trees really need some trimming. We'd like to update some of our picnic benches. Some of them are in bad shape. And certainly, we'd like to get some more program equipment. We ran a cornhole league that I probably could have had 30 teams, but the high school had given me 10 cornhole boards, and we ended up taking 20 players. So we'd like to, expand on that a little bit. So that's the reason for the increase in the recreation areas. The beach and dock maintenance is up a little bit because 20 Mile Beach, we're taking over the laying of the buoys out there. The doctors have been doing it for years. They've asked for some help. We've been down there this year with them to get trained, I guess you could say. And we're going to probably take that over, so that's going to increase a little bit. We decided, with this COVID thing, the lifeguards really wasn't an issue. I know we had an issue with the Wilpo beaches and thought we'd be overcrowded and everything else, but the lifeguard thing wasn't an issue. What is an issue, I think, is the swim lessons and the swim team. We do have in the budget, we want to bring one of our lifeguards to a WSI. She agreed to take the course. That would give us 2 WSIs, so we could have plenty of help to have the swim lessons and swim team on that issue. What else we got? The beach and walk toilets, pretty much the same as last year. The trash is the same. The one item that's different, I think, really kind of stuck out this year is the old home days.
Yeah.
And we talked about that with our commission and with our selectmen about a lot of the programs that we run really don't have a budget, whether it be an Easter program, Valentine's Day program, Saturday in the park, romper room. Some of those things really don't have a budget. Yeah, there might be $250 for this. And we've been living off this reserve fund. So I think eventually we got to get to the point where we put them in the budget. The biggest item, of course, with old home days, for example, $1,000 to have a movie at the Central School this year. So we put it in the budget in hopes that we could start adding our other programs into the budget in the future. But certainly, old home days, we face the COVID again, and we want to regroup that committee and then get more of a town-wide community event. we did salvage some good programs out of it. I think it ended with the town picnic, which was a pretty good success down at the beach. What else we got? Membership dues, it's pretty much just being part of the New Hampshire Recreation Parks Association. A lot of information, a lot of training opportunities, a lot of discounts for different things. What else we got? Swim coach. Swim coach is split by two people, WSI. They meet every 4 days a week with the participants, and they split the $750. Outside of that, I think, maybe a 20% raise for me might be in order.
Yeah, I
Why
hear
is it
it,
so cold in here? Is that for a reason?
I hear it freezing out there already. Right over.
It's cold in here.
Well, it
Well,
was
that's moving
comfortable,
along.
it was comfortable when we came in, it started to shut off a little bit now. after
Warmer
that.
outside, although that full moon is nice. So,
I have well, two questions for you. First of all, in your narrative that you provide to us on the town of Wolfboro, it says that funds to be used by our office for reimbursement to residents
yeah,
that take part in Wolfboro recreation programs.
let me update that a little bit.
You're not compensating Tuftonboro residents directly. That goes right to the
Part of our
town.
meeting tonight with the commission was to talk about that, and the payment to Wolfboro over the years has been based on the 2010 census population. They charge $6.98 per person. Well, what we want to do, and we talked about two different ways, but we want to get charged for what they actually get reimbursed for. For example, a $50 ski pass for a resident as opposed to an $80 ski pass non-resident, $30 difference. Well, that's what we want to get charged for. So if you take that $16,000, you're not telling me there's no way we use all that in resident fees. So we're scheduling a meeting with Christine, well, we sent her an email tonight about trying to sit down and say, listen, can we get together and get billed, whether it's quarterly or yearly, for the actual reimbursement that our Tufton residents use?
So they don't give you, do they give you any numbers?
They just kind of make up, like, they gave us numbers for this past year, but.
We can't
they-
use this past year, but if you.
Yeah, but in general, we've asked them before, and they don't keep track of it. They kind of just estimate it off of the population there, and
Yeah,
they're not keeping records of it, so.
And I think if we didn't call them on the fact that they billed us for the full year, and when I called them, they put it on the selectmen's agenda for 2 weeks ago, and said, I know after March, everything was pretty much canceled for the recreation programs, which we had the same problem. And again, it was up at the selectmen meeting, we got the minutes, I watched it on TV, and they did the right thing. They readjusted it roughly 30%. So all we're saying is that we want to pay our share, but we want to pay what our people use, and not just a blank figure thrown at us. So we're going to meet with them and see, the other option, which might be a little bit hard for a resident, is that we reimburse them. But at the selectmen meeting, I think Bill brought it up. It'll be hard for a person to go over there, pay the full amount, then come to town offices and we reimburse them, type of thing.
no, that makes no sense whatsoever.
So-
I'm trying to understand, are you telling me that people who use this program really don't pay for whatever they're using?
No.
But
Oh, well, that's
If
what
you,
he's leading you to
no,
believe.
for example, if you want to use Abenaki,
Yeah,
you can buy a pass to Abenaki
Mhm.
as a Tuftonboro resident.
right.
But we're not paying, Abenaki skiing is not factored into that, right?
It is.
It is, okay. But you figure that this is for
skating,
Little League Baseball, hockey.
I think so. They have a whole list they gave us.
the summer camp,
They-
the summer camp is one of the big items.
Yes, the summer camp,
So these,
use of the tennis courts, all, so on and so forth.
so but does the person in Wolfboro pay for the cost of it? The individual pay for it?
No.
They don't, they get it for free?
They pay the resident Wolfboro fee.
There are user fees associated with
Yes,
an
I
awful lot,
understand.
with an awful lot of
But
these
I'm
sports.
trying to, so there's a user fee because they're non-resident, it might be $100 to play tennis.
Yeah, so
And
we're,
they're paying that $100. So then, what are you doing with giving money to Wolfboro for?
So what this is doing is we're paying so that you're getting Wolfboro resident rates. So if we weren't a part of this and you were coming from some other town or something, you would be paying the non-resident rate. So right now, if you're going there, it's like you're a resident of Wolfboro, you're paying the same rate as a Wolfboro resident.
Boy, that's pretty generous, huh?
But for them, or for them to us, or for us to them?
I think for them,
What?
to us.
I stood up at town meeting, and this goes back probably 1986,
That's big.
and I said, I think this is, because I think at the time, we were giving them something in the order of $5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, folks, I said, you are going to kill the golden goose unless we get this number up.
Mhm.
And I speak as a parent who put 2 children through athletic programs and now 2 grandchildren in the athletic programs. This is the biggest bargain in our budget.
Well, the other issue too, I mean, we charge Wolfboro for our program.
Do you?
Well, I mean, I know that when we run swim lessons at night, Wolfboro didn't. Wolfboro residents participated.
So you never charge those Wolfboro residents?
No. It was my first year on the job, 2 years
So
ago.
wouldn't it just be,
And this past year, we didn't have swim lessons, so.
but shouldn't it just be an even out?
Well, they obviously have a staff of 4 or 5 people, full-timers. I'm a part-time director.
No, I'm
So, I
saying
mean,
you
their
don't even pay
programs
it
are
anymore.
way up here, we're way down here. I mean,
Can't
we
you
don't
just
have
do a
senior
handshake and
state.
say, your people use our facility, my people use your facility,
Yeah.
it's even?
It would not even
It's
approach
not.
being even,
The,
really.
God,
You know, and again,
I'm so used
Is
to
the question
paying
here, is the question here
for
that we're paying the
my
correct
kids
amount?
and
Is that what the,
you know?
I'm not sure, I understand where this discussion is taking.
Listen, somebody?
Yeah.
Are we questioning the amount, it's not right, or are we saying it needs more research, or what is it?
We're questioning the concept, the discussion was going around the concept, Gary, not the amount.
Oh, okay.
We just think we should have paid the appropriate fee that they,
And you did. Then this year, you got
and
the
we think we're paying
payment.
much more with what they're charging us based on the census.
You think we're paying more?
Yes.
No question about it.
I don't think nearly, so they're basing off the entire Tuftonboro population and saying like, if everyone went, this is what it's gonna cost. And that's what we pay.
$6.98 per person.
So, but we probably, I wouldn't even say, like, my estimate would probably be, it'd be more like, in actuality, probably like 10,000 or so versus 16,000.
Would you be able to duplicate the facilities, duplicate all the offerings that people in Tuftonboro get by participating in Wolfboro for $16,000? Not
No.
even close.
no.
So,
But that's always been the case.
that's
Right.
exactly.
So it's like you can't have a little league in Tuftonboro.
Right.
You have one baseball team.
Yeah.
You need Wolfboro's
And
population.
we're not arguing with paying them. We just think it should be a slightly smaller amount. Like we're fine with paying them the amount per resident. And I understand they have better facilities and everything.
They have facilities.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
And they do the same thing with Brookfield too.
Mhm.
It's the same agreement.
Yep.
So,
So,
you know, we'll let you know how that turns out. You know? And again, you know, just being a little small piece of the budget and a small piece of the whole Tuftonboro scene here, I don't know what goes on politically between the 2 towns, like are they doing this here and all that, so we don't want to make a big deal out of it, I just want to pay our share, what we're supposed to pay.
The real share.
Yeah.
What do summer residents pay?
The summer residents,
The non-residents of Wolfboro, what, Tuftonboro?
I'm sure they pay the rest.
I mean, in the program, they pay,
I'm sure, yeah.
no, it's based on not residency, I think probably more on taxpayer.
Yeah.
So,
So,
if you are a taxpayer at Tuftonboro, you get the same benefits as you
that
get
is
yeah.
their college.
a resident, legal resident. All right.
So that's basically it on my budget, any other questions?
The selectmen changed the Parks and Rec salary line by $300 because you just witnessed
Is that 20%?
Dennis Lembo in action. He does a lot more than we contract for, so, and we continually ask him to do more things, which he invariably does. So we did increase his budget on that one. And the total budget is up $75, I think, or $78, $75.
Well, what we didn't spend this year, I think we're covered for that.
Total budget is actually down.
It's there.
Yeah, we took out lifeguards for next year, part of it, because it's hard to find lifeguards right now, and we've been doing this summer, so we're gonna still do the swim team and swim lessons, but not lifeguarding. So that kind of offset where we increased with recreational areas and old home days.
My wife is turning over in her grave.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Make a motion to accept the budget for Parks and Recreation number 5520 in the amount of $57,111.
I'll second it.
Been moved by Bob and seconded by Penny. Are there further discussion? Barry?
Aye.
Gary?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Chip?
Aye.
Helen?
Yes?
Bob?
Aye.
Penny? Chair votes aye. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving on the committee. It's nice to see somebody who's not on our side of the rainbow.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
Yeah. It's immediate, if you remember, right?
How is Lloyd?
He's driving.
Okay.
He's out of the hospital?
Yeah. Doesn't matter, that's when he came home. He called me just before the meeting.
Is he okay?
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't make any sense to him, but he's walking. He's driving.
Do you want to speak into the
I
microphone?
did,
Building
yes.
louder?
Yeah, we did not only in the commercial plan, so we not only had that, so last time, laying in bed worrying, obviously, I like Lloyd and I hope nothing happened to him. But the other factor is we got Bill Marcuson going off to Los Angeles for Thanksgiving. So the first thing I did this morning was go to the office and say, find out from the state what I do when COVID hits Marcuson and Lloyd drops dead. And we have one selectman and you need 2 signatures on the checks and all of this needs to be voted for. What do I do? Do I appoint?
Is that true, yeah?
You could appoint people.
Yeah. We need to know the statutory direction.
Okay.
I know how to sign checks, so.
Really?
I think it's called uttering. Isn't that the legal term, forgery and uttering?
I think so.
Okay, folks, moving on then to our last item for the evening, which is 4155, Everybody's favorite, personal administration. Hello, Chip.
Okay, personal administration. We went to any number of areas for the health insurance. Ended up with a reduction of $18,259 year to year. Was rebuffed on my notion of an enormous deductible that we would put into capital reserve to drive rates down, and there was no insurance company that would buy it. And we're too small to take advantage of 2 other health insurance companies which wouldn't even offer us a policy description. So that's where we are there. The big increase, so I thought we had a great big savings until the retirement system came waltzing in from the state of New Hampshire, and there was a 5.5% increase in police retirement, a 2.9% increase in fire, and an 2.89% in employees. But the police really kicked us in the patootie. So that that budget went up by $23,476, which brings us down to a total increase of $268 year to year.
That's still not bad.
I don't think so.
Overall,
I
it's
No, I applaud you,
Yeah.
being able to bring in that number.
I do too.
However,
And I know what you're gonna talk about, but just so you know, once we get into that discussion,
yes,
this number wouldn't change a nickel. A nickel. Because any money that I charge my employees would come in as the revenue, and the cost of that would be reflected in their increase of pay, which would be in the personnel. So this budget that we're looking at right here wouldn't change.
well, that's because you're working on you're still working on the theory that nobody's gonna feel any pain by making a change.
Nobody's
as-
gonna feel any pain,
I understand that,
right?
but my point is, this year, as it was for every year I've been sitting on the committee, is that at some point, you're gonna have to say this is it. Okay, new hires are going to have to come in under a new set of rules. And nothing has been done on that, and I understand your theory,
Okay.
but you're living in a vacuum. Nobody else in the area is doing it, and it just doesn't seem fair to me that when everybody else is having to pay part of I mean, I got my letter from Social Security the other day. Okay, there's my Social Security, and there's my Medicare deduction.
Oh, and the deductibles have been changed. So the actual cost to the insured has changed. What hasn't changed and what won't change is that we aren't making our employees participate. And I think, you may think I'm living in a vacuum on this topic, but I think perhaps the vacuum is on your side of the table. We need to have everybody covered by health insurance. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
I understand that. Can you,
And,
and I've asked you before,
and
are there any other communities
there are,
not having any participation?
actually.
You
if-
ran,
and if
you ran for the county commission,
Yeah,
okay? Are county employees participating in
Some.
payment of their premiums?
some of them are, but the difference there is that the county employees are represented by 3 different unions.
So,
So in the union negotiation, they may negotiate away 10% of the cost of insurance, or in the case of some of them, I think the sheriff's department was one, when I was there, that was non-negotiable. That was in their union negotiations that happened. So collective bargaining decided who was paying what, and it also decided the wage rate.
but we have no collective bargaining. It's it's the magnanimous gesture on the part of the selectmen.
I
We're doing it.
would,
That's all.
I would say, I have an opinion.
Okay.
I would say that we have no collective bargaining. However, when our employees get a package, and it just happens that the package includes, they do not pay for their health insurance, but it's compensated by the amount that they receive in salary. So it's just that they get one package.
So that leads to the discussion, do you think that our people are underpaid?
I do not.
So I think that, personally, I think they're very well
We
compensated.
paid $6,000 for a study several years ago, and they came back and they said, the package that you give your employees is consistent with other towns that they looked at, including in the whole package, which
So
was
part of it
salary
is
and
wage and
benefits.
part of it is benefit. It is the combined benefit of working here. What's that give you? And a portion of it is a fully paid health insurance plan, and that's what it is. As long as the combined amount isn't some excessive. And I don't, you may say that people are well compensated, but I'd love to have anybody here at these tables live on 18 or 20 bucks an hour. I mean, it's a living wage, I guess. I certainly wouldn't want to live on it. But, so.
I think they're compensated based upon responsibility and skill sets. I don't think anybody working for this town is undercompensated for what their level of responsibility is.
No, because, and we'll get back to your collective bargaining situation. It is individual bargaining. So we bargain with each individual employee on their wages when they're hired. So that's the point in time when we're gonna set the value of their effort to the town.
But then step and track kicks in.
I'm sorry?
Step and track, that's an old Governor Wentworth expression. Every year, every year you're going to get an increase in your salary based on the COLA, but you're also going to get kicked up a grade on the scale for years of employment.
You may have that available to you.
Yes.
But it may not come. You're not guaranteed that step. And there's been a number of occasions when the steps, I mean, the fire chief who was just here didn't get a step this year or last year. This captain didn't get a step. So there are situations, depending on the individual employee, where they may or may not get the step. The COLA is going to happen because everybody gets the COLA just to stay at the same place they were. If we had collective bargaining, we'd lose control over that individual negotiation. So, for instance, we replaced our town clerk this year because Heather left. That salary dropped by $15,000. In a unionized setting of collective bargaining, that position has a rate, and that's what you pay.
Exactly.
And so you lose a lot of flexibility.
I understand.
So not,
But as I look through the salary scales and, I don't think there's anybody who can legitimately say that based on their skill sets that they are undercompensated
no.
from a salary basis.
Right.
So if you're not being undercompensated at all on a salary basis, and you're getting essentially a free medical and dental plan, then I say that you started to be overcompensated because you were the only person in the area probably exhibiting that same skill set that's getting that kind of package.
No, that's not true at all.
Well, I just don't.
I have an opinion also. I look at the total compensation, the total cost of the town of an employee, which includes benefits and direct salary. And I don't think that it can be said that we're overpaying employees by any means on that basis. And I'll be honest with you, Gord, I don't know where you get the idea that we have to develop a sense of fairness based on what other communities are doing. As long as our employees are being treated as well as the other employees, we don't have to bring their total compensation levels down.
I'm not talking about current employees, Gary. I'm talking about establishing a program going into the future. And I've been beating that horse for years.
And I think
Basically, when I was interested in becoming a member of the budget committee, said that I thought that the town had to go in that direction, and I still think that is the case. But I don't know how that's going to affect the discussion tonight on this budget. I don't know why we're talking about this at this time.
Because that's our job, is to look forward to the future.
it's Gordon's opportunity to talk about it.
Exactly.
This is when this happens. But if you look at, take the capital improvements that you've got today. There's an average over 10 years of 2% per year of increase in taxes. And I bet if you look back at the cost of living increase, it's probably somewhere around 1.5 or 2% average over the last 10 years. I look at the whole budget. What's the cost of doing business? And I firmly believe that this year's budget's gonna be a little lower than last year's budget, I hope. If we can do that year to year, then we've addressed the cost of doing business. I don't think there's ever gonna be an instance, and I know there won't be while I'm sitting on the select board, when we eviscerate the budget by $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000. It's just not gonna happen.
Well, it won't happen because you don't have it in here to have it happen.
I'm sorry?
You don't have that kind of excess money in this budget to have that happen.
Right.
Well, sure you do.
Where would you have it?
You got $296,000 worth of health insurance.
Oh, so you feel that that's excess?
No, I don't. But, and I don't think anybody here thinks that.
So then it's really
excess.
not.
But there have been budget committees who thought that was. In fact, there are members of the community who probably think that everybody should buy their own health insurance and the town shouldn't be involved at all. Well, that's $300,000 less budget.
All right, but see, I look at it very differently. If there's excess money in here, that is our job to root it out.
Sure.
But I don't consider that health insurance is excess. But I agree with Gordon. I think at some point in time, employees have got to start paying for their health insurance.
Or a portion thereof.
A portion thereof,
I-
even if
I-
it's $10.
I think if you polled the most
They
town
do.
employees right now, and you said, you know, we'd kind of like you to contribute just a little bit to your health insurance. I don't think any of them would say, that's it, no, I'm all through.
I'm out the
They'd
door.
say, you know, we've got it pretty good here, maybe we can help out just a little bit, and it's not gonna kill us. And I don't think there'd be a problem there. I think the employees would understand that.
Let me ask you,
Okay.
if the deductible HRA reimbursement, do you reimburse, say it's a $2,000 deductible, does the town pay $1,000 of that deductible or the full $2,000?
On the health reimbursement account?
Yeah.
The town pays that,
The full $2,000?
right? But-
Well, see, now I would suggest, if you
Okay.
want to keep them from having to pay for their health insurance, that you slowly say to them, you would have to pick up part of this deductible.
Okay, so if today,
Mhm.
you have a $5,000 deductible on
Mhm.
your health insurance, and starting January 1st, you have a $10,000 deductible on your health insurance.
Is that what the current deductible is,
I'm
$10,000?
Just bear with
Okay.
me. Okay. Have you now contributed more to your health insurance or less?
Well, it depends on how you use your health insurance.
Okay, let's say you get sick like an average person.
Mhm.
Okay, and you've got a $5,000 deductible in 2020. In 2021, you're gonna have $10,000 deductible. Do you then have to contribute more to your health insurance?
You would be paying whatever percentage of the deductible that you would have to, that you decide on. So is it 5% that you pay on your deductible as an employee?
No,
'Cause you're
that's your
paying nothing
deductible. We don't pay any of their deductibles.
Right. Oh, well, I asked you that question.
Right, we're not paying their deductibles.
Oh, okay, but I asked you that and you said
No,
you
no,
do.
that's a health savings account.
Yes, I know what that
It's
is.
very different from the standard go to the hospital.
Yes,
pay deductible.
it's the HRA.
Right.
So it's like if you have an Anthem policy and it has a deductible, and then within the description of what the plan covers, well visits are so much, sick visits are so much, x-rays, blah, blah, blah. That's what that is. But in some businesses, for the employee and the employer share that deductible.
Okay,
But you're saying that they don't here.
No, I think it's one thing to
we
say
do, because the health,
sometime in the future, we're gonna have to make a different set of rules for new people coming in. But in the meantime, from what I'm looking at in this budget that we're being asked to approve tonight, I don't see an alarm going off. So we're talking about.
I'm just trying to understand what this line means.
okay, this is a town expense, the health
Mm-hmm,
reimbursement account.
okay.
Okay, so that, last year you had a $5,000 deductible. This year you got a $10,000 deductible, but we're gonna pay $2,000 of it.
Mhm.
But who's paying the other $8,000?
It would be the employee if the town is
Right.
paying it.
Right. So if you're paying an additional $3,000 in deduct, and I'm just throwing these numbers out, I have to look them up. But if you're paying a higher deductible next year than you did this year, are you paying more for your health insurance?
No,
Yes.
because, no, it isn't, because
Of
it
course you
depends,
are.
no, it depends on how you use the insurance.
Well,
If you don't have any sick visits, you're not paying for your deductible.
If you're not, I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Most deductible plans,
Yeah,
well visits are free, they're not deducted.
right.
It's the sick visits that are deducted.
Right.
And if you're not sick, then you don't have to worry about your deductible.
Sure.
So you wouldn't be paying.
Okay, but insurance is all about risk.
Right.
The only
I
way they set,
understand.
the
I
only way they
understand this
set
more than you
policy value
realize.
is risk. So if you wanna say, I got no risk, I'm never gonna get sick in 2021, then you don't need health insurance. Okay, but everybody has the possibility of getting sick or needing health care. So that, I mean, we're basing our pricing on that if we're an insurance company. The town is basing its ability to pay for health insurance on how much can the employee take in co-pays and how much can they stand the deductibles and how are we gonna work the health reimbursement line.
All right,
But
so,
every year, they pay a little more out of their own pocket.
in this deductible, is that what you're saying this line is?
they're only paying a little more if they use it.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
right. But at the end of the day, the total bill comes to $18,000 less than last year. Now, whether or not somebody gets sick or not, I have no control
Well, that's
over.
right. But what is this deductible? Is it what the town pays out? Or is it the town and the employee?
No, we can only, this budget can only reflect what the town is.
Okay, so $23,000 is the deductible.
It's our
Do you-
portion of what's being paid.
Is your portion. Do you give that money to the employee in their account?
It goes into the health savings. account.
Yes, it goes into the employee's account. That's the employee's money then.
Right,
That's all I was looking for.
okay.
So what's the
And if they
difference?
don't use it, they don't get it back, just so you know.
What did you just say? I'm sorry, if they don't use
If
it?
they don't use it, they don't get it back.
If they don't use the deductible and it's in their health savings account, that's their money then.
That's not the way this is structured,
Oh.
okay?
It's only, it's
Only used,
used if they have expenses.
it's not like they're
Okay, so
getting
it's
paid a
not
$2,000 check. at the end
HRAs
of the year.
and-
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, they don't get a bonus check at the end of the year if they didn't use their health savings.
See, most
If you're not
people,
getting sick, you don't get anything.
most people who have an HRA, say, as I used the number 2,000,
Right.
they would have to put in 1,000 into their account, and their employer puts 1,000. And it goes, and that becomes, that $2,000 becomes the employee's money.
Right. And they can accumulate,
Yes, that's right.
To a certain
But that's not
amount.
what happens with this, you're saying.
no. That's a different account that is available to each individual
Mhm.
employee to participate in. That's a separate account from this account. This is an expense account.
Okay.
It gets to me that there seems to be no give on this issue that Gordon keeps bringing up. And, yet, you know, when I get a bill, and it's November now, so all my health insurance bills are coming in, and they just say, well, here, it's going up this much this year. A lot of people I know, I mean, it goes up that much each year, and you have no choice but to pay that. A lot of people I know are going without it right now, because they can't afford it doing that and that and that. And all we're saying is, you know, maybe the town employees ought to get a little taste of what everybody else in the world has to do. But we've got to bite the bullet a little bit here and suck it up.
And, okay, we're never going to agree on that. First of all, our employees are paying more annually out of pocket for their health insurance. Secondly, the fact that whoever wants to underpay their employees so they don't have health insurance, that's not my problem, and I'm not going there. So if you've got people out in the community,
That's not.
if you have people out in the community who don't have health insurance, that's their employer's problem, not my problem. You got Walmart has a department in North Conway for their employees to describe to them and help them get food stamps. That's corporate welfare.
Yes, it
If
is.
your employer doesn't want to pay for health insurance, that's their employer not being a good business person or not wanting to share.
And that's not what we're arguing tonight or discussing, because I think Walmart should just be tossed off the face of the earth for what they do to their employees. I'm just saying, from my own perspective, having been an employee, paying for my health insurance, it just makes you one of everybody else. The idea that you get free health insurance when you're working, it's odd.
We're going to have this philosophical
And there's
discussion.
also
here.
a difference between private industry and the government.
And municipal.
And it's this budget. What I'm giving you tonight is a savings of whatever it is,
Can I ask a
$18,000
question
on
about
the health
something
insurance,
else?
and the net savings on this budget of $260.
I have a question on another line. Can we
Sure.
move on? Okay, on the social security line,
Yeah.
the department head request is 52,000 and the selectman request 72,000.
Right.
Why the difference?
And the reason for that was because there was a miscalculation on the part of our bookkeeper when she had to calculate in the retirement benefit as well.
That's all payroll driven anyway.
Yes, it is.
There's actually nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, it's driven by-
Sort of cutting people's pay, which we're not going to do. Right?
It shouldn't pay any much.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, as I said, we've had this discussion every year. I've been sitting here and you've been sitting over there, and I would love to see the day come where the selectmen say, we have to do something about this on the long term. Because I'm going to say one last thing, that I think it's patently unfair to a lot of people who live in this community who are paying these bills, that their local employees are in a system that just doesn't exist out there.
Okay, and we're gonna fundamentally disagree forever, even though I will be like a brother.
That's fine. Okay.
The other
I
job,
think I disagree with that also. I really do.
What do I care?
It is what it is in our town. And it's been this way for a long time. And we certainly watch the total cost of what we pay, what it costs to have an employee do work for us. And that includes the direct salary and the benefits.
Yes.
And these budgets that have been going back and forth for the last several years have been progressing on a fairly reasonable course. I just don't see the need to make a change now. But the kind of change that you're asking for, Gordon, I think is very well one that we could have to make sometime in the future if these budgets don't look like they're progressing on the same course from year to year that they have been.
Well, quite frankly, the change should have been done years ago when the study was done, when all of a sudden we realized that the study came back and said that the town employees were undercompensated, and we had the big increase in the salary structure. And as I remember correctly, I think you were a member of the board at that time, that would have been the time to do action on something like this, and it was not done. So my point is that I just don't see that we can keep on, that this is going to go on infinitum without something having to be done down the road. And I'm saying, and my proposal is that you deal with it in baby steps. And the first baby step is, as Penny was saying, maybe you start looking at this deductible fund. Another step might be, excuse me, I'm speaking right, Gary, I'm speaking right now. Gary, I am speaking right now, thank you. And the other step would be perhaps looking at new hires. Okay?
I'm sorry?
Another situation, say you have a policy for existing employees and a policy for people coming in that are a new hire. All I'm saying is I'd like to see something the end of that tunnel besides the train continuing coming to hit us. And that's all I'm gonna say on the subject.
I think as Bob says about a lot of issues, we've been kicking the can down the road on this. We have to stop the can somewhere and say, okay, if we're gonna do something, we've got to do something, it's got to stop somewhere.
If this line actually affected the budget that dramatically, I'd do it. If it remains a moral question, I won't do it. If I can save you $600,000 in taxes, I'll save you $600,000 in taxes. And maybe we'll still give our health insurance for free. But would your employee rather pay an additional property tax because I gotta juggle my numbers around? Or would they rather have us run an effective budget that actually lowers the tax by 66 cents this year? And you have to look at the whole picture. If you look at this one line and marry it to some sort of global thinking about morality, you're just losing sight of the picture. The whole budget is the picture. This budget line went down $18,000. It'll go down again next year.
Well, if you can, I will not be able to say you can guarantee that. I don't see how you can guarantee 2 years health premiums out when that's a crystal ball that I would love to have you take over my portfolio. So you can tell me what I'm gonna be doing in 2 years. But that's,
Well, I think you're talking about two different groups of people, for one thing. If you're talking about the people that are already employed, if you're looking for them to share your health expenses, you're asking for a give back. If you look at new hires, that's a negotiable situation where the guy on the other side of the table that you're talking about hiring can make a choice. Or you can go someplace else and find a salary. But, you know, there are two different people that we're talking about here. And then you got, my thought is that the only way you could do any revisions is on new hires. You can't ask people to give things back when you hire them.
And there's nothing wrong with that, that's a good idea too, but it's gotta stop sometime.
I agree with that.
It's gotta stop sometime.
Okay. I would like to propose that we approve the budget for Personnel Administration account 4155 in the amount of $633,004.
I'll second it.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. For purposes for further discussion, Chip, thank you. I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
And going out and getting a
Going to
good
this
plan.
office just to get.
You did your job this year. Is there any other further discussion on this? Barry?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes,
Helen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
I look forward to this night all year.
So do I.
Just so you know.
So do I. I want to make you analogies, and I was thinking about maybe because I'm way too much of a gentleman. Okay. Moving on then to, there is no correspondence that I'm aware of. It's, new business, Board of Selectmen update.
We will have, I think our next budget meeting is the 16th,
Yes.
and it's our intention to have all of the rest of the budgets available.
Did you say the 15th or the 16th?
16th.
16th, yeah.
So Wednesday.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to get them to you as quickly as we can. We're going to vote on some on Monday. The one that concerns me the most is government buildings. And the reason it concerns me is that our code enforcement officers having surgery, so we got to try to get that done correctly before he goes under the knife. And I'm still waiting for cemeteries. And only mentioning that on YouTube to maybe kick my cemetery trustees in the patootie so they can get it done. The rest of them are done. I reviewed them. We haven't voted on them, so Monday we'll be voting on a bunch of budgets. So that our goal is to have all of the operating budget finished up with the budget committee by the night of the 16th, so that when we come back in January, we can just look at warrant articles. And by then, I'll have the actual fixed cost for the police station, so we can discuss that. We've already discussed paving, so we'll bring paving forward as well as the road construction. Some of the things that are listed in CIP, we'll know better in January whether we're going to do them at all. For instance, the seawall at Melvin River, whether we can get that permitted and done next year. And we're still chatting with the police chief at our last meeting. I don't know if any of you watched it, but, or even at any rate. My concern was that we had a police cruiser on the warrant in March that just last week went on the road. So if you've got an 8-year turnaround, you're only getting 7 years worth of use out of the thing, because you don't do your purchase and get your equipment all installed and do all the rest of your stuff. It takes you till December to get it done. Do we need to address that in the possibility of having a police cruiser on this year's warrant?
Well, that's why we pushed it out a year.
That's not why we pushed it out a year so we could do the library and not overload the warrant.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that was part of the discussion,
yeah.
was the fact that it took so long to get it and they got an extra one.
And he has an extra cruiser that he's talking about fixing the rust. So that discussion on the cruiser is going to continue probably through December. And I think, I don't remember whether or not to sign at the transfer station was on the CIP report, but we haven't finished about that.
We pushed that one way out.
Yeah. So I think the warrant's going to be pretty light with the exception of the police department. And that's the way we should do it. And if you look at the last page of the CIP report where they track the taxes, I mean, I think if we can stay on a 2 or 2.5% maximum tax increase average over a 10-year period, that's about the best you're going to do. And stay in business.
Absolutely.
Okay. Helen had asked for a CIP update, but you're old news now, so.
Water under the bridge.
Water under the bridge. Okay, next meeting date is the Wednesday, the 16th. Any public input? Yes, Joe?
Yeah, I have several questions, and one starting with Dennis on the Parks and Rec. Because of the less amount of monies that he has spent this year, and this goes right across the board to everybody else, it seems to me that the new products that they want for the coming year, why couldn't that money be encumbered and put it away, and that would lessen their budget for next year, number one. Number two,
Well, you want to ask them one at a time, you want to go?
no, I want to just run, these are comments that I'm going to make in this food for thought. Adam's sitting here, and he said, well, we had 12 runs this year with the ambulance, all fine and well. But every time there's a call in town, I do believe that the ambulance, our ambulance, goes out and backs up. I don't know this for sure, but this is what I thought I heard, backs up the other people that are at the location, but nobody at the table had asked that. So I was just curious in related costs, between ambulances and everything else. And that's all. I just wanted to give you my 2 cents, that's all.
Okay, as far as
In encumbered money.
encumbered money, the only way we can legally encumber money is if we have a signed contract for a good or service. So what we're doing with, for instance, you brought up the Parks and Rec, is any projected physical costs that they have going out into 21 that they can accomplish this year, do it this year, because he's got a little extra money in his budget, rather than increasing the budget for 2021 and underspending, substantially underspending 2020, because that only inures to the benefit of the undesignated fund balance. As far as the ambulance is concerned, I didn't notice, I guess we could all look it up, but I didn't notice any significant change in the cost on the fire department budget for the ambulance. So that would mean to me that accommodated within the fire department budget and managing his department, he's able to send the ambulance whenever he wants to send it.
You know, I was just asking the question. One more, if you mind. I talked with the selectmen last meeting we had. What are you going to do about warrant articles, and if we can't have 300 or 400 people together? And this, I guess, goes with the state legislature. Has anybody made a move because I'm going to keep pushing for this every week. Has anybody made a move? You get a police station, you got this going on, this.
Right.
Nothing's happened yet.
Well, we have made it, or questioned the local government as well as agencies, the Attorney General's office, for instance. How can we structure the meeting, the town meeting? My thought would be that the legislature could pass a temporary, which will throw
SB2?
SB2, so that little towns like Tuftonboro could do an SB2, so we could have more articles on the budget, on the ballot. That would require legislators that actually did something. I've been here for 4 years and never seen our legislator darken our door, so I have no way of moving that.
Have the selectmen, or going on to Joe's question, thought about moving it to a later date in the year? Moving it to the June meeting?
Well, we can't actually.
We can't?
No. We'd have to petition the Lord with prayer and move the date. It's set in stone. We can't even split it. Because we had thought about, okay, let's have part of it at the school with 100 people in that space or whatever it could take reasonably, and then televise it to another area, for instance here, the fire department, and somehow collectively figure out how to vote in a situation like that. But we can't have it in multiple locations either without a legislative enactment.
But we would not be able to petition the powers to be to move our meeting from March to June?
We can try, and it's not a,
Because who did that?
it's not impossible to do it.
Did Molten Borough do that last year? Did
No,
Molten
they-
Borough or
But it was because of the weather that they moved it, I believe, wasn't it? It was 2 years ago.
I can remember well, 1 year they moved everything and they ended up having their town meeting at the Sandwich Fairgrounds. I think it was last year, and it was something to do with the pandemic. And correct me, I don't know if it was Molten Borough, but it was one of the towns where they said, no, we can't do it indoors, and so they moved it
Right.
and held it up at the fairgrounds. I mean, I'd be much happier, for example, I always thought that a March town meeting in a community like ours doesn't make as much sense as a June one. Because first of all, if you're asking for participation on the part of your voters, take the number of the population of the registered voters who weren't here in March, but who would be here in June. So,
Yeah, I know that the small town in Maine where I have a house, Greenwood, because they was like, well, how are we gonna have town meeting? And they decided that the selectmen decided they wouldn't have a town meeting, and they would just go to last year's budget and put off major projects and go with that to now until the situation resolves itself.
You still have to, in New Hampshire, you still have to have the legislative body vote on the budget. There's no way around it.
But it's nice to know that some governments say, we've got a problem, let's do something and deal with it, as Joe said.
Because I can't believe that we're gonna be unique
Town meeting
in
made
that
that
situation come March.
The presumption that we aren't gonna do anything is ridiculous. It's no different than the presumptions you read in the paper this week, that we didn't wear a mask at the voting last November. So I'm not gonna put up with ridiculous assumptions. We are gonna do something. Obviously, asking to move the meeting to an outdoor setting in April or May or whatever is a good idea. Whether or not we can get the Secretary of State to agree to it or the Attorney General, that's another. But we're not the only town
My point.
with this problem.
Extraordinary times call for extraordinary actions, maybe somebody ought to.
Right, and I don't think I could with good conscience bring a police station to a meeting of 50 people.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's just, it's not the will of the people if the voters wouldn't have it.
Well, thank you for your discussion, I appreciate it. We can go home now.
Okay.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion has been made,
Second,
it's been seconded.
I can
Garrett. Aye. Garrett. Chip.
Yeah.
Helen.
Yes.
Bob.
yes,
Penny.
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
this is what I declare.
I need to use the